action.
Hi everybody, it's me, Loueez, the honey badger of Burlesque and the powerhouse of the Midwest. I just wanted to make this little video to follow up on the video that you may have seen last week that the incredible Edible Aquinos made after the Bad Girls of Burlesque showcase at the New Orleans Burlesque Festival. So, a lot of people have been asking questions about why Aquinos was upset, why a lot of us were upset, and exactly what went down. So I just wanted to talk about it without, I just want to be honest and keep it real, because I think that it's time, especially as POC performers, we need to start talking about this shit and calling it out when we see it. So that's what I'm trying to do today, in a respectful way, of course. So basically, what went down was I was hosting the Bad Girls of Burlesque showcase, and this is my 4th time at the festival, 3rd time performing. I originally got rejected for the Queen competition, but I still wanted to infiltrate the festival. A lot of you have been before, and for a lot of you that have not been before, we know that it's pretty classic, pretty whitewashed, based on 1950s idea of traditional burlesque, which is fine. That's the producer's prerogative. But I feel like what we need to not forget about is that the 1950s were racist and misogynist as fuck. So I had to ask myself, knowing this, why do I want to be a part of something that pretty much promotes, cis, white, traditional, female, thin bodies that we see often, which is, I'm not hating on that, but we know it's not a diverse festival. It's not a festival for the people. Not knocking it, just saying what it is, which is fine. So the Bad Girls of Burlesque showcase is supposed to be the wild and crazy, provocative, badass girls of burlesque. Mind you, another point, there's only 3 people of color that I knew of in the festival. That was myself, Miss Poison Ivory, and Iris Lamore. Love them. But so the Bad Girls of Burlesque showcase is supposed to be badass performers. Historically, this show pretty much tends to still be a showcase of classic burlesque with cis white female bodies. It's not that much different from the rest of the festival, actually. What was different and more prevalent this year was that the definition of bad girls seemed to be white women who dance to hip-hop, twerking, rap music, mimicking moves that you may have seen black performers do. Pretty much just a showcase of that for the most part. Oh, and some of them might have tattoos and wear black. The show opened. Really? Right now? Try to be professional and make a quick video and make this. Okay. So the show opened with something that I feel was a blatant rip-off and copy of Peekaboo Points and Gal Friday's Assel Tassel Twirling duet, which you may have seen in the Bad Girls of Burlesque showcase in 2012, which pretty much set the tone for the entire evening. It was a blatant rip-off, first of all. I had a little bit of a problem with the act when I saw it in 2012, the original act, and I love Gal Friday and Peekaboo Point, not hating on them at all. But, a lot of brown performers feel like, had they submitted the exact same act with the exact same moves and music, would have been rejected. Would have been fucking rejected without a doubt. That's how we feel. It's a fact. It's a fact. It happens all the time. So basically, it was a blatant ripoff, you know, of a duet that we've already seen at this festival. And what followed, there was pretty much, like Aquino said, just a lot of white women dancing to hip-hop and rap music, doing the twerking, which my problem is, and a lot of people get this twisted, my problem is not with white people twerking. That is not the problem at all. The problem is that people don't have respect, people don't have the knowledge, people aren't doing their research, people aren't doing a good job of doing it. And when they're creating acts, they're not creating acts that are coming from a place of truth of who they are and what they want to do. It's mimicking, and it's a mockery, and a lot of people use it for comedic effect. And it's not hilarious. It's not funny. It's not cute. And you kind of look like an asshole. Especially when your songs have a lot of N-words being thrown around. You know, there weren't that many brown people in the audience, but I guarantee you that when a black person has to sit here and watch white people twerking and mimicking to songs that contain the N-word left and right, I'm not enjoying your fucking performance. I'm not impressed. I'm not approving. Like, I just don't give a shit anymore, and now I think you're an asshole. Not that everybody does this, you know. There's always exceptions to the rules and whatnot. And a lot of people saying, but geez, aren't you contributing to the problem because you teach twerking, jerk? You know, I've thought about this a lot, and there's been a lot of times where I'm like, you know what? I'm not teaching this fucking class anymore. It's become a problem. People are being disrespectful. But I realize people who are taking my class, the people who are taking Twerking Jerk, are not the people who are creating these acts. They're not. People come to my class, and I try to tell them right off the bat, if you want to do a hip-hop act, if you want to do a twerking act, here's what to do, here's what not to do. And like Aquino said in the video, Nina Lavoie hooked it up. She did an act that was amazing and awesome. She used hip-hop music. It was classic burlesque. You know, she did her thing.
You had a student. You had a student, too, who had taken a
class.
Yes!
Fucking Regina Dentata killed it. Shout out to Regina from Toronto. Her act was on fire. She's taken Twerking Jerk before. She did her thing, and it was her. It was her. It wasn't appropriating. It wasn't like, oh, look at me, I'm trying to, you know, put on these moves, put on this persona. That's what we saw a lot of, was people putting on a persona, putting on, this is how I do hip-hop, this is how I'm a badass, this is how I look cool. Not doing it well, and not thinking about how it's going to make others feel. Granted, you know, like I said before, there weren't a lot of brown people in the audience, but the black people that I did speak with definitely did feel uncomfortable about a lot. And I'm not saying that a lot of this is on the that all of it is on the responsibility of the performer. It's also the responsibility of the producer who is curating the show and curating the lineup. Granted, we know that this producer has their specific taste, their specific type, but then, you know, why are we supporting that? Like, why are we, you know, supporting an organization that is actively pushing brown people out of it, but still wanting to represent black culture on stage with white bodies? So I feel a big, you know, conflict inside about that a lot. But okay, so we're back for the second part. Anyway, like I was saying before, I do feel a lot of conflict about stuff like this. But also to address something else that I was talking about with Twerking Jerk, I feel like I do try to include knowledge about the history of twerking and about appropriation and how to properly include these things in your act. And I feel like since there are a lot more twerk shops happening, that is something that does need to be included, especially if you're going to call it a twerk shop. I'm not, you know, I'm really not trying to knock anybody, and I hesitate to try to tell people what they can and can't do. You know, I'm not an authority. People are going to do whatever they want to do. But what I do feel strongly about is that if something is not being done correctly, or if people are spreading misinformation, or if people don't have the skills to teach it to other people, that's a problem. We're not having it when it's done with burlesque. You're not having it when it's done with any other thing. And, you know, twerking might be new to a lot of people, but it's not new. It's popular now, but it's not new. So that's why a lot of people feel, you know, a certain protection over it, especially because brown bodies and black women are getting pushed away from doing that at certain festivals and certain shows all over the place, you know? And it's like, we gotta talk. I feel like we just gotta talk about what are we gonna do about it. Are we gonna keep, I don't know what the statistics are. I don't know how many black people applied to the festival, how many got rejected or whatever. But, you know, are we going to keep sending our $15, $20 to these organizations who are then just going to keep our money, reject our act, but then have a whitewashed version of the same thing that we're representing? But at the same time, I feel like I want to keep going to these events because we need to be represented. And if I have that opportunity, you know, maybe I need to take it and use it, which is why I'm making this video. But anyway, back to the show. You know, I don't want to call people out by name, but it was just some problematic shit. It was problematic. It made me feel uncomfortable. It made a lot of people feel uncomfortable. I didn't go to the after party. I didn't go to the brunch because it's like, how am I supposed to then sit here and chit-chat with people after there was just blatant disrespect all over that stage? It's hard. So some other things that happened in the festival, you know, there's some cultural differences. There was a performer from, I believe it was New Zealand, who was doing what they call a little bro act, which is, from my understanding and the way she kind of interpreted it to me, in America it would basically be like, kind of like a wigga act, like white dudes trying to act black, trying to be cool. But the thing that I got confused about was that it's not reading that you're making fun of that. It's reading that you're doing that if you come out in baggy jeans and a hoodie and mimicking all these black male moves. It just wasn't reading. We weren't in on the joke. We weren't in on the mockery, if you will. So that was a little confusing to me. There was another performer, and I spoke with this performer. Sorry, one moment. I did send this performer a message about why this was problematic. They did a sexy cop routine, and since I was the MC, you know, the way it was introduced was that they busted me and arrested me. And I thought about it a little bit the day of the show, but I didn't say anything. But once it happened, it did feel problematic to me. And other people did say something about it, because you have to think about, okay, you know, and somebody did bring up, maybe I made the mistake that this performer who is white presenting may not be white, maybe a person of color, but from my perspective, I perceive her to be a white woman. It's just something to think about when you're in that position, as a position of authority, particularly a cop, and you're putting the image of arresting a black woman or a brown body in general, whether or not it's intentional, which I know it's not, the image is problematic. It made me feel uncomfortable to put that image out into the audience of mostly white audience members of another brown body getting arrested. I know it was tongue-in-cheek, it's not to be malicious, it's supposed to be cute and sexy and fun, but especially with the way that shit is going down in society right now, it's just things that you have to think about. And I know a lot of you out there don't get the chance to work with performers of color very often, or don't get the chance to work with MCs who are performers of color. So it's shit that y'all might not think about. But as performers of color, we have to think about it. And we have to talk about it. And we have to really think about where we're going to go from here. What's the next step? Do we keep trying to infiltrate these spaces where we know that our art and our representation and our politics are not wanted or not to be represented? Or do we say, we're not having this shit, we're not supporting this shit, you're not getting our money, and for our white friends who are allies and support our movement and our Black Lives Matter on the internet every other day, what microaggressions are you contributing to in your daily life that you might not know about in your career? You know, if you want to support festivals and organizations and shows that are whitewashed, you know, I can't hate on that. We all have a fear of missing out. We all want to be included. But think about what these organizations are representing and what you're putting out there as someone who is an ally. Basically, I'm just upset and conflicted. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do. But I do know that I feel like we need to talk about it. You know, I'm not going around accusing people of this and that, but we need to have some serious dialogue. I'm not saying that every black person needs to make a video or make a Facebook status, but we just got to think about this shit, y'all, because it's real. Burlesque is not some magical bubble land that doesn't have to deal with the racism and everything else that is happening in the world. It's happening all the time. Black people, brown people, I see you, I hear you, I feel you. And it's time to really just talk about some things and get it out there. So, you know, this is just my opinion. This is where I'm coming from. I just want to keep it real, keep it honest, so I hope no one is offended. But if you are offended, and if you feel like I came to you on a place in anger and hate and disrespect, then maybe you need to check some things within yourself and check with the man in the mirror.